recorded.
All right, recording has started. All right, let's get started. And then if more people join, we will admit them and hopefully I will notice that. But it is recording for future use. All right, so good morning, everyone. My name is Erin Rovinsky. I work for the city of Green Bay. Thank you for taking time out of your morning to talk about parklets. This is hopefully a brief, just a brief presentation and talks about parklets, and we should be able to answer questions at the end. So we will hear from the mayor and from the business improvement districts, and then after they say some words about parklets and what they hope to achieve for our city, then I will explain a little bit about parklets and the application process. And then after we do that, then we will be able to answer questions. And if anybody is on and wants to ask a question, you can type it into the chat, or you can unmute yourself and speak. So feel free to do that at the end. And I will also right now type in the chat the website that we are talking about. Our documents are on this website, greenbaywi.gov/parklets. All right, so we will get started with Mayor and the bids. So Mayor Ginrich, if you would like to say a few words about parklets and what it means for our city.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks, Erin, for pulling us all together for this presentation. I'll keep things fairly brief because I know we want to get to the meat of the discussion, but just really glad that we're able to provide this grant program for our area businesses, our downtown businesses. I think, in some sense, this represents a little bit of a philosophical shift, and it's an outgrowth of the shared corridor vision study that I think just about everybody here on the call participated in making happen. To me, it's obvious that our streets are public spaces and are important, obviously, for the circulation of traffic. But even when you talk about traffic, that includes pedestrians and cyclists and transit, and of course, people in motor vehicles. But our streets are, like I said, they're public spaces and should be used to benefit our citizens and our residents, our businesses. And like I said, this is kind of an outgrowth of the Parklet program. I think will enable businesses to, extend their operation into the street, into parking spaces, for eating, for drinking, but also potentially for retail purposes, also for public benefit, for lounging, just as a place to meet and mingle with other neighbors and residents. So I'm really excited about, kind of what this indicates for us as a city. And again, very thankful to everyone on this call for making it happen. First and foremost to Erin for all the work that she's done to bring us together here today, and on the Parklet application as well, to Matt Buchanan for his work with the shared corridor vision study, and also on parklets generally. Of course, Jeff Merkis from downtown Green Bay, Steve and Dave from DPW for all the work that they've done, both on the corridor vision study and also on the parklet permit application process. Jamie from our clerk's office, and then finally Brian Johnson, thanking him for both of the hats that he wears, both as an alder who I think initially put in the communication on parklets a while back now, and then of course in his role as executive director and on Broadway, and all the folks that he pulled together to inform this work. So with that, again, very excited, really hoping that many businesses take advantage of this opportunity. They'll hopefully reach out to us with any questions or concerns, but hoping that this will be well received by businesses and residents. So thanks again, and I'll kick things back over to Erin.
Thank you. So our business improvement districts are also a major part of this, really great partners. And if Jeff and Brian would like to speak, that would be wonderful. The floor is yours.
Right. Thank you very much, Aaron, for coordinating the materials for today's meeting. And so well said, Mayor Genrich, the number of entities that it takes for something like this to work. A few years ago, I'd never heard of what a parklet was. And while maybe the COVID pandemic has exemplified or made this amenity more popular in downtowns around, our organizations, both Broadway and downtown, had a little taste of how parklets work with the Better Block project. I think that was a project that Matt Buchanan brought to us, and we saw it happen in the Broadway district, and the following year it happened on Adams Street. So that was the first opportunity to see how a parklet works. This could not happen without the city recognizing that this is something that helps some of our businesses. It doesn't happen automatically. It takes some effort to make it happen, but to have the city provide some resources and funding, the flexibility to use a parking space for something other than parking a car. And so the city is showing that this is something that they're willing to work with. Also as evidenced by all the various departments that are involved in today's call to support this. For the right businesses, very good possibility. We are already hearing from vendors from throughout the country who want to provide these amenities. They want to build them. What's awesome is we already know that right in our own community, there are vendors who can provide this asset that can do the building. So there is an opportunity to buy local if a business wants to deploy a parklet. I'm just very pleased with the ability that the city is offering. We hope that there are more than a few that want to try it. And hopefully that the information that's conveyed in this program today will be additional support to some businesses that say that this is an opportunity to extend the boundaries of their business and connect in a way with a new clientele and have exposure. And this is an asset that could be used year after year. They're very durable, and it could be a way for a variety of businesses to make a statement about the way they want to connect with new clientele. Visually, I think it's a unique amenity that when you drive through downtowns and you see these, they add life. And that's what we want as well. When people come to our downtown, they're going to see more activity, more things happening, events are coming back. And I believe that a parklet is just another new entity that can help put a signature downtown as a cool factor. So I'll turn it over to Alder Johnson. But I also want to thank Brian for your role in this. I do recall your organization was the first one to step up and test out this as a concept, and then your role as a city leader as well in the approval process, working with a variety of departments. So thank you very much, Alder Johnson.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. And you know, this was very coincidentally a communication that was actually submitted prior to the pandemic, and it was recognizing, you know, that other communities were having a great deal of success with parklets in their respective communities. And I think, you know, the effects of the pandemic certainly accelerated and highlighted some of the additional advantages of being able to create open spaces within our community forum. And Jeff, you hit it on the head, and this is about life in downtown. You think about the amount of time, energy, and resources we spend as in our respective organizations trying to coordinate events and activate street fronts. And this is a way for us to allow that to happen organically. And people, they come to downtown not for parking stalls, they come to downtown for amenities. And I will kind of beat that drum till the day I die, but it's really important to recognize the importance of programmed activity, of density, of reasons for people to come downtown. And I think this is another one. I spent some time traveling over the past year when, you know, parklets really became more prominent in other communities. And certainly I think dining, even when you think of, you know, certain bars that might want to create some outdoor spaces where people can enjoy a beverage. But I did see some really successful retail operations. I think, Mayor, you alluded to that. And It was really interesting. I think of one record store that even had, you know, all their the records and everything out, and they had a DJ playing on the street, and just how it activated that space in a really different way. So I think it gives the businesses some ability to have some ownership over the success of our districts as well, and that's really important. So, and I do want to thank Matt, and he's been recognized before, but bringing Better Block to the community was really the precursor to all of this. For those who had an opportunity to experience that event, it's really about short-term interventions, you know, to really determine if we try things a little bit differently, can we see a different outcome and different successes for the way that the residents of our community intersect with our public spaces. And Better Block was certainly the thing that sparked that dialogue. As Jeff said, we did it, and of course downtown did it the following year. And then we did something called Parking Day in 2019, where we did build a one-day parklet. I believe that's September. It's in September, but it was, and that was a really fun exercise and got people thinking a little bit differently about the way that they utilize our public spaces. So really excited to see this get off the ground. I want to give special thanks as well to Director Grenier and his team, because there was a lot of work that went into this and in making sure that met all of the safety protocols that are really necessary for these things to work. And so very appreciative of that effort. Thanks, Aaron.
Thank you. Thank you for speaking on these things. It really is an exciting initiative that we are doing. I'm trying to share my screen. Can someone let me know if you see it? Okay. All right, wonderful. So I am going to get into a little bit of the things that we worked out after, you know, really having these discussions and really just trying to bring this here and make it very useful for businesses and for our community. So we'll see that this is, you know, this is kind of what we're talking about. It's a very vibrant place off the street, a very active corridor. So most of what I'm going to speak about is an overview of the Parklet handbook that's on our website. And so I did put that link in the chat, and also the website will be at the bottom of the slides too. So to begin, if you look at the image on the right, it shows how a Parklet installation can really add space for customers and for the public. It adds the seating and the plants, and it really just energizes that space. And as you see, this is a public space. So there is a process to get a permit for these Parklet installations. And this is just one example of the activities that can be hosted in a Parklet. Where can Parklets be located? They are mainly along active corridors where there's pedestrian activity and slow speed limits. And you'll see in our city where parking can be different, where you have the metered parking and also, you know, the 2 hour, 3 hour limit parking areas. So if you don't have like a marked space with the pavement markings, the equivalent is 8 feet by 20 feet. And Parklet can take up to 2 curbside parking spaces. But we do recommend that you confirm that the parking spaces that you are interested in are appropriate. Please confirm that with Public Works. So there is a lot of contact while you're going through this process. Contact me in Public Works as you're going through your application process or design and construction. Parklets may be installed from May 1st to October 31st annually. And when you apply for a permit is for 3 years. The handbook and the technical standards in the Parklet ordinance that was passed really discussed design elements and how to incorporate the requirements for safety and also, you know, the location recommendations. And but really, we want people to get creative and make this space their own. and to really think of the users and make it comfortable and creative. And like I said before, you are encouraged to contact the city while you are designing your parklet, just to make sure that it is going in the right direction with the standards that we have for them. And we do in the handbook, we have a diagram to kind of explain what it looks like if you're more of a visual learner. And then applying for a permit. The permit application is available online at greenbaywi.gov/parklets. In addition to the form, we ask that you show a site plan of where you propose to put a parklet, and also a certificate of insurance with the City of Green Bay as additional insured. If you are using your parklet as a sidewalk cafe, you do need to apply for the sidewalk cafe permit. And then after the revocable occupancy permit is completed by Public Works, then a $200 permit fee must be paid.
I think that's something that's important to talk about there, Aaron.
Mm.
The parklet covers the parking space that's actually within the roadway surface, so beyond the curb and gutter. When we're talking about that area between the back of curb and the face of the building, part of that is dedicated for pedestrian pathway. That's the true sidewalk. And then there's some terrace area. Because the ordinance doesn't specifically state that a parklet has to be located directly in front of the business who's sponsoring the parklet. The parklets can kind of be anywhere, but the parklet permit does not authorize the holder of the terrace area that's part of the sidewalk. So there is two separate permit processes, one of them for the sidewalk cafe or revocable occupancy permit if you're not serving food and beverage. Those permits can be done in parallel at the same time, and they can be leveraged with each other if the business if the entity putting the parklet in also wants to have the ROP or sidewalk cafe permit to have a larger expanded area. If there is somebody who's going to put a parklet in a stall not adjacent to the business that they own. So we'll have two different entities, one owning the business, one putting the parklet in, and the parklet is also going to have a revocable occupancy permit or sidewalk cafe permit associated with it. Well, number one, the sidewalk cafe wouldn't, because the sidewalk cafe has to be contiguous to the business, the main premises. But if an applicant is going to look to use the terrace area and the parking space for an expanded ROP and parklet, one of the things not currently addressed under ordinance that we are going to have to add in, it just sort of came up as we started fleshing some of these things out. We are going to be requiring a letter of support from the business that's being fronted, because essentially that sidewalk or the parklet and ROP owner would create a sort of denial of service to the adjacent business. We don't want to do that. Obviously, you know, some of the things we're trying to do is to help enhance those businesses. We don't want somebody from down the block coming and taking the parking spot in front of somebody else business the opportunity to use that same space. So there's a couple of these small things that are still being worked out as we're getting into it. Again, the parklet program is brand new, so there are some learning pains here. The other thing that we want to make sure we stress is that these have to be, the parklets are going to be granted on what we characterize as local streets only, nothing collector and above. That shouldn't be a big problem. It's pretty rare to have parking spaces on collector or above roadways, but that's a safety issue. We don't want parklets being out in the roadway surface on high volume, high speed. And for me, high speed is 30 to 35 miles an hour. We don't want to create that conflict. That conflict between pedestrians and motorists is something that engineers strive to avoid. So we want to make sure that when we put these in, we're doing it in a way that the occupants of the parklet can be safe.
Thank you. Thank you for clarifying that, and then talking about what we've learned as we've been starting this program too. So yes, a letter of support would be very important. And like we said, we are going to be working with applicants as they are going through the application process. So we will make sure that we're following the checklist for applying. All right, so now I'm going to talk about the Downtown Parklet Grant. And this grant provides funds of up to 80% of approved project costs with a maximum funding at $5,000. Business owners, commercial property owners, nonprofits, and business improvement districts are eligible to apply for this grant. So this grant is funded by Tax Increment District 5, which is shown the blocks that are in the yellow orange color. So that means only parklets within that dashed outline are eligible for funding through this grant. So this is a downtown grant. The program may reimburse costs for materials for parklet construction, contracted labor costs, or permitting. To apply for the grant, the application form and the program description are on the same webpage as the Parklet handbook and just the overall Parklet program. So this grant is under that same page. Applications are due July 9th. So please contact me, Erin Rovinsky, if you are interested, and we will schedule an in-person or a virtual meeting before you complete your application. And this will also be part of your permit application too. So that will be happening at the same time. The grant application must include a completed Parklet permit application. After it is submitted, it will be reviewed by our city staff and then taken to the next Economic Development Authority meeting for approval. So this, we are hoping to get these out this summer. We will be working with you so that we can get these installed, and we will talk about if, we will let you know if after this first round of applications, if we will be opening up a second round in case we still have additional funding after this July round. So I just want to thank you for listening to the presentation. That is a brief overview of the Parklet program. This is my contact information on the screen. If you have any additional questions that are not going to be answered today, or even as you are just going through the process or interested in applying, you can contact me. And if you do have questions, you can type them into the chat or unmute yourself to speak now. And we have city staff here. We have our Public Works Department, Community and Economic Development, the Clerk's Office, and the bids who can help answer questions. And I know that some questions have come up. And thank you, Steve, for clarifying some of the things about the permitting and just what happens if their parklet goes on someone else's, outside of someone else's business. So that's a really good information to learn about. But if anybody else knew of any other questions that businesses or potential applicants have been asking about, we can do this during this meeting to have it recorded for future listeners.
I'll ask one, and maybe this is actually Jamie. I think I'll ask, it's a question that I think I'm asking on behalf of those entities that may potentially want to extend their business out and offer the opportunity to drink alcoholic beverages in their parklet. Can you address the permitting for that and how easy and the timeline that would be involved to help make that possible?
You. So I did reach out to Joanne in our law department prior to this meeting, and any extension of premise would have to have committee approval, which is our protection and policy, as well as common council. And it would be a similar format what we have with sidewalk cafe permits. For example, is approved by our Department of Public Works, and then that would allow us to be able to go to committee and council.
Okay, so I guess as a follow-up, is it likely that this will be approved? And what is the timeline to be able to get that approved? I want to be able to assure the businesses that we're encouraging to do this and invest in this, that they will be able to be serving by the end of summer. Is that realistic when we consider the timeline that it takes to get through the process?
The Protection and Policy Committee, they have no meetings in July, and in August, I believe they have 2, and then Common Council. So it'd be, all we would need is just a written request and that need to go to a meeting. So it all depends on when the meetings are.
But with that in mind, Jamie, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mayor, we weren't necessarily, when the meeting schedule was established for the council and the committee meetings, this type of a program wasn't necessarily anticipated. So if, Jen, we wind up with a significant number, if we get a handful of folks who want to come in and get not only parklets, but and the process is identical. It is the same process. So you're doing a sidewalk cafe. Just historically, the sidewalk cafe has ended at the back of curb. You would now define your premises to also include your parklet, but it's exactly the same process, nothing different. So the timelines that are all there are already established for sidewalk cafe. Just because we don't have regularly scheduled meetings of that committee and the Common Council, we've done in the past with liquor licenses and things of that nature, if there is a need, I think there is the possibility or good probability that the mayor or the Common Council could convene a special meeting of the just simply to take up these couple of things, and then similarly have a special meeting of the Common Council to adopt the report of the Protection and Policy Committee. So we don't have anything regularly scheduled in July, but if we have the business owners, I'm sure the city would accommodate that.
Yeah, and that's a great point, Steve, especially with the flexibility that we have. We just recently moved into kind of a hybrid meeting structure. So that allows us to be very flexible, with convening virtual meetings and making those approvals at the committee and council level. So I don't foresee that being an issue if there's real demand.
Mayor, could I maybe even ask offer a suggestion or ask a question? Would it be possible for Protection Policy to have this as an agenda item at their next meeting? And then Common Council could take it up at the end of June, recognizing that this deadline is in early July, where basically we could give staff the ability to make that decision and council could ratify it at its next meeting in August. I mean, usually these are pretty, rubber stamp types of decisions. Just wondering if that might be an option.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point too.
And typically the only real concern that we have with this type of an administrative action is if a permit is denied and somebody's on appeal, because typically the appeal goes to the standing committee. But as long as things are being approved, that's less of a concern, giving the staff the authority to do that at a staff level.
All right, were there any other questions anyone had? All right, if not, thank you for all the information and for taking time to talk about parklets today, and maybe clarify some things. And
did you have a question, Jeff?
I actually want to just close by saying I would encourage any business that might be on the fence to get in touch with Aaron or any of the bids, because there is some additional support that our organizations would provide. We would consider having our organization underwrite, offset the permit fee. We do want to provide incentives for businesses that want to consider this. And there's a $5,000 grant that's available. And if a business were able to get into something like this at low or no cost, we encourage them to give it a try.
Jeff, and I would second that for the Broadway district as well. So just so that there's no confusion there, I think we would do that as well.
yeah, thank you. All right, well, with that, thank you. If anybody has any questions, please reach out. We encourage people to apply, and if they're interested, to reach out to us, even if, yeah, like you said, if they're on the fence, just contact us. All right.